Plex is tripling their price for a lifetime license from $250 to a whopping $750. But in this video, I'm going to teach you how to bypass that entirely and get a fully featured home streaming service for a fraction of the price, potentially free, and as a bonus, you'll get better privacy too. So in the off chance you wandered onto this video and have absolutely no idea what's going on, let me explain. There's a streaming company called Plex. Plex offers a product called the Plex Media Server, which is usually what people are referring to when they talk about Plex. Put simply, the Plex Media Server is an app that you host, and it basically turns your library of movies, music, photos, and other media that you own into your own personal streaming app. The Plex Media Server works on what's called the freemium business model, meaning that the core product is free, but you need to pay in order to unlock additional features. This paid service is what's called Plex Pass, and I'm going to take an educated guess here and say that if you're at the point where you're willing to swear off the convenient but expensive path of just paying for a billion streaming services and instead host your own, you're almost certainly going to want to pay for the features Plex Pass unlocks. A Plex Pass subscription comes in three options: monthly, yearly, or a one-time lifetime license. Currently, that license is $250, but on July 1st, it's going up to a mind-boggling $750. There are a few things worth noting here. For one, existing Plex users are unaffected, and anyone who signs up before July 1st will also be unaffected. So Plex does deserve the bare minimum of credit for not screwing over existing users and giving people who are on the fence a chance to act now. However, it should also be noted that monthly and annual prices are not changing, and Plex pretty much explicitly says that it's because they want to drive users towards a paying subscription model. To be fair, Plex is providing an ongoing service here. It's not like they're charging you a subscription model for a one-time video game, or the heated seats in your car, or some of the other completely insane moves we've been seeing companies try to pull lately. They are actively developing a product that they routinely update and provide support for, and that costs money. Still, there's a lot of reasons this kind of move may turn people off of Plex now. The biggest one is probably that that's a massive price jump. Yes, it's a one-time fee for all current and future releases, maybe, but that's still an insanely high price jump, designed intentionally to be prohibitively expensive and push people towards the less gut-wrenching but clearly more expensive in the long run option. Fortunately, there are alternatives to Plex, and in this video I'm going to teach you how to get set up with my personal favorite called Jellyfin. There's a few things that make Jellyfin stand out for me. For one, the software is completely free. No paywalling features behind a subscription or even a one-time payment. All features are available from the start. Jellyfin is also very privacy respecting. There's no data collection, no analytics, no accounts with the main service or data breaches. And I know for most people that's not a huge deciding factor either way, but let me point out that that also means no ads. Now, if the content you're streaming has ads, then of course there will be, but Jellyfin themselves will never insert any additional ones or put them on the home screen or whatever else companies are doing these days. Finally, Jellyfin is open source, which means that in addition to the official apps, there are other unofficial apps that have different features, interfaces, or support platforms that the official ones might not. And the developers are totally okay with this. There won't be some kind of legal takedown request in the future that kills off your favorite app of choice, because that's one of the main philosophies of open source, is that it's okay to change the code and do something different if you want. There's a lot of options for how to use Jellyfin. For example, if you have all your media files on a single computer and you just want to organize them, you can install the app directly on your device and start using it. In this video, we'll talk about how to use Jellyfin as a media server like Plex that can stream to multiple devices such as phones, computers, or smart TVs like a traditional streaming service would. To start, you'll need a device that can function as your server. You can use nearly any computer, from an old laptop you have lying around to a Raspberry Pi, but be aware that the less powerful devices like a Pi probably can't handle 4K or large libraries. I would recommend trying to get your hands on a mini PC, such as an Intel NUC, a Dell Optiplex, or something similar. Usually you can pick these up used or refurbished for a couple $100. In this tutorial, I'll be using a Raspberry Pi because I happen to have one lying around, but the process should be mostly the same even if you go with a mini PC. As a quick side note, if you didn't know, you'll need somewhere to physically put this server, and it'll need to run 24/7. I have my actual Jellyfin server running on an old Dell Optiplex that sits directly under my router. I would recommend doing something similar if you're able to, as the Ethernet connection will ensure the most stable connection and fastest speeds, but just make sure it's somewhere with a reliable connection where it won't overheat, get unplugged, get knocked over by cats, etc. Jellyfin can be hosted on any operating system, including Windows and Mac, but personally I'm a fan of Linux for hosting anything wherever possible. There's a few advantages to using Linux. Number one, it's free. Number two, it uses less resources, so you'll have more processing power for streaming the content instead of running the features that you don't use on the operating system. Number three, you'll probably have an easier time finding help online since most of us self-hosting nerds are Linux users. And number 4, in my opinion, Linux offers more granular control if you ever need it. You probably won't. Jellyfin is literally the easiest software I've ever hosted, but at least the option is there if you need it later. I recommend using Ubuntu LTS as your server software because it's stable, user-friendly, has years of support, and is super popular, so again, it'll be easier to find help, and nearly any software you might want or need is designed to be used with it. We're not going to go into detail about how to install Ubuntu in this video for time's sake. There are a lot of great tutorials, but you can also probably figure it out yourself. Here's a quick rundown of the steps though. Number 1, go to Ubuntu's website and download the latest LTS version, which is 26.04 at the time of this video. If you're using a Raspberry Pi with Ubuntu, instead go to Raspberry Pi's website and download the Imager tool, which allows you to select Ubuntu Server LTS from the menu. Also, at the time of this recording, Raspberry Pi is one version behind, but that won't cause any issues and you can easily upgrade later. Number 2, install the ISO file onto a USB stick using a software like Rufus or DD on Linux, or again, use the Raspberry Pi Imager mentioned before if that's the route you're taking. Number 3, plug your USB stick into the server and boot into the boot menu. Typically, you do this by repeatedly pressing a certain key on the keyboard while the manufacturer logo is on screen, but the exact key varies. The best way to find out which key you need to press is to look up the make and model of the device and boot menu. Once in the boot menu, you select the USB stick as your boot device. If you're using a Raspberry Pi, all you need to do is plug it in and it will automatically boot into the install menu. Number 4, follow the prompts on screen to install Ubuntu Server. Be sure to include SSH if that's not selected by default, as we will need that moving forward. After you've installed Linux on your device, the easiest way to manage it remotely is using SSH. That way you don't have to bother with moving USB sticks back and forth or keeping a monitor and a keyboard plugged in or any of that stuff. As I mentioned earlier, my Jellyfin server literally sits under the end table where my router is located, and I manage it entirely remotely from my desk using SSH. Every modern operating system comes preloaded with SSH, including Mac, Windows, and most Linux distros. If yours doesn't have it, a quick web search should help you figure out how to add it. Using SSH and managing your Jellyfin server remotely simply requires you to know the server's IP address. You can get this in 2 ways. On the server itself, you can type in IPA and look for the local IP address. It will probably start with something like 192.168. Alternatively, if you know how to log into your router, and I really hope you do, then you can simply find the device's IP address there. On your main computer, you can use SSH simply by typing in SSH root at and the IP address, and then logging in using the password you set up when you installed Ubuntu. Okay, so we've picked out hardware, we've installed Linux, and we're connected over SSH. It's finally time to actually install Jellyfin, which is literally a single command. This command runs a script that handles everything for you. Yeah, seriously, it's that easy. Once the server is installed, use your browser to navigate to the server's IP address, again that 192.168, but add :8096 at the end to connect to your new server. There you will be greeted with a short setup wizard that guides you through creating an admin user and picking what files you want to add to the server. And that's seriously it. You now have a fully functional Jellyfin server accessible from any device in the home. Of course, with a dedicated server, you'll need to add content. But before we talk about how to do that, I just wanted to take a moment to say that if you're finding this tutorial helpful, please consider signing up for a membership to support Privacy Guides. Privacy Guides is an independent nonprofit dedicated to delivering the best consumer privacy advice on the internet. Stuff like this and more. We don't have any sponsorships or affiliate links. We are strictly supported by our community. A membership gives you early access to videos and the show notes for our weekly live stream podcast, as well as priority during the podcast Q&A, a badge on our community forum, and other member-only content. Your support is what enables us to keep making content like this. Adding content to the server is most easily done with an FTP client, such as FileZilla or something like rsync on Linux. And the Jellyfin documentation is fantastic, so I recommend checking that out for help on how to structure your folders and how to name your files to make sure that it shows up correctly in terms of metadata, things like titles and movie posters. The exact steps vary based on the client or tool you're using, but it should involve connecting remotely just like SSH, and then either using the graphic interface or the command line to copy files over to the server. It's typically a very seamless process. Now, I'm sure many users will be asking where to get content, and I know a lot of people in the comments are going to recommend the high seas, but I'm not going to do that. For one, it's illegal, and I would have to be stupid to publicly encourage you to break the law. That probably opens up some liabilities. For another, I do think that there's a lot of perfectly legal ways to get content to populate on your server. Now, you won't be able to get stuff like Netflix exclusive content, of course, but Jellyfin is capable of streaming and recording live TV with some additional setup, for example. So that's one place. You could also digitize your existing collection of DVDs and CDs using a software like Handbrake. You can use sites like Bandcamp, Humble Bundle, itch.io, and GOG to look for DRM-free content. You can use the Internet Archive and check for other public domain works. Project Gutenberg has books and audiobooks. You can also buy digital downloads and use software to convert it into DRM format that you can put on your server. With a little creativity, there are plenty of options that still support the creators you like. I think the biggest hurdle for some users is going to be the fact that this server, as we've currently set it up, is only available inside your home. Any device in your home can access it, but if you want to stream while you're traveling, you can't. Of course, there are ways to make that happen, but we're not going to cover them in big detail, mostly for the sake of time. There's a lot of tutorials about how to take a self-hosted server at home and open it up to the larger internet, but we'll outline the basic steps real quick. Step 1, buy a domain name from a provider like Namecheap, Porkbun, or Najala, or whoever you prefer. Step 2, set the DNS record to point to your home's IP address. I recommend using a software on your server such as DD Client that will update the provider's DNS records automatically, since many residential internet service providers rotate IP addresses periodically. This ensures that your server is always reachable automatically. Step 3, set up port forwarding on your router to allow ports 80 and 443 through. And then step 4 is to set up a reverse proxy such as Caddy to help convert the connection to the correct port and upgrade to TLS. Hopefully that's enough information to at least help you find a good guide, but I do want you to know that there's always risks when you open up your device at home to the wider internet. Unless you travel a lot, it's probably safest to just stick to enjoying your server on your local network when you're home and accept the inconvenience of not having access to it when you're away. In the meantime, if this tutorial got you excited and you're looking for some other projects you can self-host, you should check out our recent video about how to run a signal proxy to keep signal running in censored areas, which also goes a little bit more into detail into the domain purchasing process, as well as some advice to harden your server when it is exposed to the wider internet.